This land is your land. This land is my land. I tell you, this land was made for you and me.
This land was made for you and me, yet irresponsible farming practices are putting our land and our water at risk. Gullies scar farm fields, washing away precious topsoil, creating a direct pipeline delivering mud, toxic farm chemicals, and bacteria to our streams, rivers, and eventually our drinking water supplies. Farmers, pushing to get every bushel out of every acre, are planting crops fence row to fence row and right up to stream banks. Mud, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and even crops themselves end up in our water when millions of acres of farm fields bleed soil and polluted runoff. Federal officials estimate that soil erosion in Iowa averages about 5 tons per acre per year. People say that's reassuring because conventional wisdom holds that the land can lose that much without too much damage. But a report by the Environmental Working Group called Losing Ground reveals that erosion is actually much worse than that. The group used information by Iowa scientists using new techniques that estimate how much soil is lost after each storm. In 2009, for example, some storms triggered soil losses as much as 100 tons per acre. That's 20 times greater than the reported average. 40%, nearly half of Iowa's fields, lost more than the statewide average. And the damage adds up year after year. If we had the same storm-by-storm detail for the whole country, the picture would be even more alarming. Without an area of grass between crops and water, pesticides, fertilizers, and manure run directly into our rivers, streams, and drinking water. It renders our water undrinkable, our beaches unfit to swim in, and has created an area in the Gulf so contaminated that aquatic life has to flee or die. Some farmers are doing the best they can to protect our soil and water. They plant grass strips to heal gullies. They use trees and grass as a buffer between our streams and the crop fields where they apply the pesticides and fertilizers. These farmers are our conservation heroes and are living proof that farmers and the environment can prosper together. Meanwhile, Washington makes life tougher for conservation-minded farmers by pushing them to plant fence row to fence row with little consideration for what happens to our land. For over the past decade, Washington has paid out $250 billion in federal farm subsidies. In 2008 alone, Corn Belt farmers received nearly $3 billion in subsidies as incentives to grow as much corn and soybeans as possible. Federal programs that pay farmers to repair gullies and install buffers between streams and their fields are chronically underfunded and just can't stand up to the pressure for all-out production. Instead of helping farmers protect our land, taxpayers send out big checks to the largest and wealthiest landowners. And most of the checks aren't going to struggling family farmers. In fact, the household income of people getting the biggest checks was $210,000, 3 times the national average. You don't even need to be a farmer to get a check, you just have to own the farmland. The more corn and soybeans they grow, the more taxpayer subsidies they receive. Not exactly an incentive to leave a part of that land unplanted to stop erosion, even if it means the rest of us and the environment pay the price. It's time the government starts enforcing the law that requires farmers to put conservation practices in place in exchange for the billions of dollars of taxpayer income and insurance subsidies they get every year from taxpayers. Farmers need a safety net, but so do our land and water. If you'd like to stop dangerous farm chemicals and runoff from harming our water, visit EWG's Losing Ground website.